Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracusa, Walk in Faith. I'm excited to be sitting down with my friend Joumana Kidd. Joumana and I work together. We've done several shows. We spent some time together. Joumana, thank you so much. I know you're in California, and I really appreciate this ability, the time for you to spend with me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to talk to you, and then also I saw a couple of posts the other day, and it really struck me because I mean, you have a lot of influence. I mean, you influence culture, you influence society. You have strong Christian values, and I saw a picture. I think you were, I don't know if it was a police officer, but you were holding a sign. I think it was, I don't know if it was parables, and if you could tell me about that picture. And I saw you with your children protesting, and it really just moved my heart.
I think what you're talking about, it was Proverbs.
Proverbs.
Proverbs 31. I'm trying to see which post you're talking about. I think it was Proverbs 31:8. Yeah, and speak up for those who cannot for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. And I think that it was kind of like, who can read that and be offended by it? Who can read that? And, so I went to that protest with my kids wanted to protest. And at first I was kind of like, caught up in the whole like, oh my gosh, people are looting and did that. And then I talked to people who've been out and they're like, oh my gosh, that's just the news showing you some craziness. If you're interested in peaceful, organized protests, that's not hard to find. And it's everywhere. And then I started even seeing people like protesting in my town. And when I tell you, I live in like, I live in Calabasas, and it's like the last place you'd ever think, but it was kind of cool to see. But anyway, so we went out to some protests, and I kind of, I was more worried about my girls. I was with my girls, they're both 18, twins, and I just wanted to make sure, stay close, whatever. And then I don't know what came over me, but I just was like, I just want to talk to the cops. I want to, I would start it off. I would just walk over to them with my poster, and I just said, hey, first of all, we appreciate you guys, and not every cop is bad, and I'm assuming you guys are awesome in this little group here, and kind of like just, and you saw some that were just, and you saw, and I got a lot of like little head nods, and
Wow.
And then I just asked them. I said, I got a little light reading here for you if you guys don't mind, and some just refused to even look, and some looked and like again gave me the nod, or but I just feel like because it was getting so crazy and horrible at night, and the message that is being sent is like it's a war, when really we're all on the same side. You know what I mean? There's cops that are standing there that would never want their friend to be treated like that, or their kid or whoever. And then I even felt bad for the black cops, and who are probably feeling like, okay, I'm in a war against my own people. No, you know what I mean? It was kind of like really encouraging what I was feeling I needed to do that day. And it was funny because my kids were like, I think you spoke to every single police officer and trooper or whatever that you saw that day. And I'm like, I don't know what came over. It's just what I felt compelled to do.
I mean, because I was invited to speak in the city, and I was afraid. I really was. I mean, I think it's such a, I didn't want to say interesting, but it's such a unique time. We have the pandemic, which was still suffering, right? I covered that extensively over the past 6 weeks, and then it was like all of a sudden we had this other tragedy. So I was afraid, and I still am afraid. Were you scared at all about the pandemic, but also about putting yourself out there in a situation like that?
Yeah, I think that as far as the pandemic goes, my personal opinion is that it's like the flu, or like I feel like the season is past. I feel like we're kind of done with it. In California here, we have to wear masks, so 99.9% of people have masks on. And again, like by now, it's been going on over 2 weeks. Something would have happened. Like it's not a concern. And I also feel like if you're a high risk, like, someone who is high risk of getting the virus, those people probably wouldn't go out. You know what I mean? They, and that was honestly what I always was worried about. I was never worried about getting the virus, because I always felt like I'll get it and, I'll be fine. I was worried about spreading it and people getting it that don't need to get it. So I think that now that we're at the stage we're at, I think we're fine.
Wow.
We're fine. And I've been watching the numbers, and we're okay.
And you said something interesting too. So, I mean, the news, I try to stay away from the news. And if you turn on the news, social media especially, all I see is the looting and the violence. And then once in a while, I'll see like a really nice post what was your experience like? And where were you protesting? Was this in what part of
So
California?
the first time, so we did a bunch of different ones. So we went to a soft protest, which was right in Studio City. And it was basically people on four corners of an intersection. It was like honk for Black Lives Matter. And it was just so uplifting because literally people were just stopping in the intersection, sitting on their horns. Like it was just like really cool to see the energy. And then we left that one and went to one in Hollywood. And that one was a little bit more, it was larger. That one was organized by Black Lives Matter. And I think what blew me away with that one was the amount of people that were out there with just cases of water and snacks. And I mean, this is like on their dime. This isn't like someone called them and said, okay, you're in charge of this. Like I could have drove in that crowd with a big Jeep and, gave away whatever. And I was just so impressed by that. I was so impressed by all the unity. And if I had a nickel for every time someone came up to me, they're like, do you have sunscreen on? I have sunscreen, and it's like.
So you don't hear that at all. The only thing I heard was don't drink the water because they're injecting it with poison. And, so, I mean, it's just, your perspective on the protests, I wish I would have spoke to you a couple of days ago. I mean, it rained every night in New York, but my perspective was really based on what I saw on the news and the violence. I mean, we can't disregard there are.
So and then another one we went to, we met at the police station in Pasadena, and everyone kind of sat out in front of the police station, and then people, like we had speakers, like they just kind of went up there with the bullhorn, talked about their personal, and it was kind of, that one was interesting because it was like 90% white. And then we marched to an intersection, and it was really funny because they said, and they were like really, again, organized. They gave us little pieces of paper and Sharpies. They're like, write this number on your arm because police are taking phones away. If things do get crazy and you get caught up in something, you just call this number and we'll get you out of jail right away. And I'm like, okay, I hope that doesn't happen. But we walked to the intersection, and when we got to the intersection, they said, okay, we want all the Black people in the center and we want all the white people on the outside, like protecting the Black people. And there was a handful of people on the inside. Like it was so amazing to see how many white people were there,
What were the ages? Was it your age? Was it older? What was the demographic?
That one, I would say the age ranged from like around 18 to probably like 40s. Like that. And what's really cool about that one too is once we got to that intersection, if you look down every street, one block down were 2 police cars. So they were protecting us.
That's nice.
They weren't in, you know what I mean? And so it was really nice. And that one was over, and it was over, and everybody went home, and it was super positive. And then yesterday was just the ultimate. Yesterday, I'm going to be honest with you. So my girls told me, they said, oh my gosh, Mom, YG is having a protest. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're not going to be going to like a rapper's I just didn't know. I thought it was going to be chaotic and just, I don't know, like I don't let them go to a lot of concerts and stuff because I don't want them to say anything inappropriate. Even though they're 18, I'm still like, a mom about it. And then I just started kind of hearing everybody. They're like, no, this is real. It's not like, a concert that your kids are lying to you about. It. This is real. YG is really organizing this. And so I said, okay, well, I'll come with you guys, because that was the deal we made in the beginning, that we would all do this together. And so we went, and while I was there, and I didn't even know this, I got a text from people from my church, and they're like, hey, everybody from Zoe's out here. We've got tables. We've got 2 trucks full of water and stuff that we're passing out. And then I ran into everyone from church. And I mean, I ran into everybody that I knew there. And it was just so cool to see everybody out there, like really passionate about it. And it was genuine. Like we saw, like it was J-Lo and A-Rod walking by, and people weren't even bothering them. They were, obviously they had security around them that was like low key, like not that you would notice the security type security, but people still, like, you know what I mean? In a normal situation where you have that many people, when you see celebrities, people bother them more. Like people were just like, right on, I saw tons of like celebrities. It was just really, it was so awesome to see. And you know what? I want to say now they're up, the numbers that they're saying there was about 30,000 people yesterday at that protest. I did not see one police officer.
Wow. And it was, you said it was peaceful, it was calm.
So peaceful, so
Why,
peaceful.
I
So,
mean, why, just out of curiosity, like, why did you, like, what was, when your daughter said to you, I want to go to this protest, why did they want to go? Like, what was sort of behind that?
they have been, oh my gosh, it's actually like really cool to see. So, since the pandemic, what we've done with my family is every night we have like family prayer, and then we talk about something we learned that day.
Mm.
And when all this started happening, we had our family prayer, and then we talked about what we learned that day. And the things that they were saying that they learned, I was like, wow, like, you know, this generation is like way further than I ever was. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I remember during the Rodney King, and like, I'm Palestinian. Anytime there was a Palestinian issue, I'd be like just so worked up, but more in an angry way, more in a, don't get the information and just be angry. And they were so informed. They were so, and then they asked me, they're like, Mom, what do you think about protesting? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, have you seen what they're showing us? And like I said, and then we started talking to actual people that were going, and they're like, no, that's the news. And it's like, so at home, like, we'll watch CNN, and they're fun to watch. Like, we're in love with, what is it, Chris Como and the other guy that comes on after. We're just like, they're like the homies now. Like, we
Yeah.
just love watching them. But I'll say to my kids, like, you know what, we need to turn on Fox News. We need to hear what's being said. And
You definitely need a different perspective. And I think,
that's a tough one to watch. I'm not gonna lie. It's like after about like,
I got sucked in a couple of days and I had to turn it off. But I think too, like, when I was a kid, I grew up in an area where there were riots and there was a lot of racism, and we didn't really have multiple sources of whether it was media or just. Now the kids, the generation now, number one, I think a lot of them have broke the cycle, right? And they also have new forms of communication and media, and they're able to sort of come up with their own opinion, their own sort of vision on what the world is and how they can change it. So now when you went to these protests, I know you're Palestinian. Did you ever deal with persecution, prejudice, racism? I mean, tell me about that, being a Christian from and your family in
yeah,
Palestine.
right. So we're Christian Palestinian. So I know a lot of times when people think of Palestinian, they think that you're Muslim, which there are many Muslims, but we're Christian Palestinian, and there are many Christian Palestinians. And so my parents were a lot older when they had me, and so my mom was one of the families that was removed from her home at gunpoint in, what was it, 64, 67, 64, when the British came and they took over. And I get that, like, the Holocaust was horrific. That was terrible. And I think it was shocking to me once I started learning about this. It's kind of like repeating history. It's like you're doing now the same thing to the people, to someone else that was done to you, which is, it's doesn't settle well. But the way my mom explains it, she says, you have to understand, we were all living amongst each other, like my Israeli neighbors and my, like we would, we'd get eggs from them, they'd get oregano from us, like whatever, like everything was fine. And then this happened, and it just became like, you're Palestinian, you're out of there. And my mom actually, she still has a bullet that was shot at her. That like hit a tree, and she just saved it. She was 18 at the time, like, you're a lot more brave and you think things are cool. But they were told they had to leave their home. They had a huge farm, like huge, like, her father is very successful. And they said, you can come back in like 15 days. And that was it. They fled, they went to Lebanon, and they were never allowed to come back, and lost everything.
Oh my.
And so I think a lot of people don't realize that, a lot of, especially Christians, are very, quick to, they're the chosen people, and that's the Jesus who I know, and, he loves everyone.
Mm-hmm.
He would never want, people to go through what my mom, her family, and a lot of people went through. And it was like, listening to her tell the story, it's like so real. It's not, she's just like saying, she witnessed horrific things. She witnessed them, cutting bellies of pregnant women, throwing the babies, like things that no one should ever see or do to people.
Wow. So did you reflect on that at all, after you watched the video, during the video, or just especially during these times? Did you reflect on what your mother endured?
Well, my mom actually sent me a message, and my mom is almost 90 now. She sent me a message and she said, I'm really proud of you. Just be careful. And that's huge because, my mom would normally be the overprotective. Don't go out there. What are you doing? But she was like, I'm really proud of you. And, I remember when I was in college, I got really passionate about the whole Palestinian thing. And I remember thinking, because my mom never wanted me to go out to the protests. And I remember even like being mad, like, Mom, you're such a sellout. What's your problem? Like they did this to our people. And, and I remember her saying to me, sweetie, we've been through so much. We're just tired.
Mm.
And that motivated me more because I felt like, well, we're going to fight for you. And so that's kind of maybe what I'm seeing with a lot of the protesters out there. They're kind of like, we're doing this, One thing I don't think is, so a little over a year ago, my cousin, who is in his 50s, he's also mental health. He was out in front of his home and he'd gotten into like an altercation with his mom. And they were like, it was loud. They kind of took the altercation outside. She followed him outside. I think she was actually trying to get him to take his medication and he just didn't want to take his medication. And so someone called the police. And this was in Redwood City, California. And 4 police officers came, tackled him, just kept on tasing him until he died of a heart attack. And I remember, it was horrible. And again, my aunt's very old school Middle Eastern, and she hasn't been the same. Like she's just like, out of her mind now. She's just, yeah. But she didn't want to make a big issue out of it. She didn't, she just said, what, Sue, like what, it's not going to bring him back. And, I tried to talk to her about, yeah, but people can be aware, and she just wasn't, she's like almost 90 and not in, just tired.
Wow. My God, that's a powerful story. And you mentioned too before, which, about the churches, your church was there. Have you seen a lot of, you and I spoke off camera about different pastors have been addressing this issue, but have you seen a lot of churches, a lot of priests, a lot of pastors, have they been on the front line?
Yes. Well, you had like Carl Lentz, who was just, didn't even like think twice. He was out there and his daughter, is like, she's a little like activist, like she will change the world. And so I think that, it was like really cool to see him and Charlie out there and then the whole family out there. Yeah, no, I saw like so much, like it was kind of cool to see. I think it took some a little longer than others, but I also think that it's like, you have to process it. You kind of have to be like, okay, first of all, we're about Jesus and we are always gonna, we're not saying that nothing is happening here, but let's keep the focus on prayer and, God is a genius and, but I think that the more information that people get, the more that they allow themselves to listen and really become empathetic and really start to reflect and be honest with themselves about their own heart's condition. I think that more people became outspoken and more people became like, you know what, just because I'm out here for Black Lives Matter doesn't mean I support abortion, doesn't mean I, like all these other, hang-ups that Christians feel like, well, I need, like I think what I called it, the one issue voters, that just because of this one issue, now I'm a Republican and I'm total right wing, it's okay. You know what I mean? You can still be passionate about something, know something is wrong, and still carry your whatever values you feel you have and whatever, So I think that's something I've learned and realized about a lot of Christians.
I agree. And I heard 2 people said to me, it's very political. And I said, I don't know how the murder of an innocent man is political.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like to be silent is a problem, and we said this before. And, I always talk about how, God says, Jesus says to love thy neighbor as we love ourselves, but we can chant, we can hold signs, we can say anything we want, but do we truly mean it? What are the intentions? What are the deeds? What are the actions? Or is it just words? And I think that's something we have to ask ourselves. Like I was proud to see that there was, like, I know Joel Osteen and you said like Carl Lentz, and there was a lot of pastors and preachers that have been very outspoken. I think we need to have these conversations, these honesty, and have empathy towards victims and people that are being persecuted.
Yeah,
I really do.
no, I agree. No, our pastor, like this past Sunday, because we have church online. I mean, he was so clear. He was like, I just want you all to know where your pastor's heart is. And he talked all about Black Lives Matter. He talked about how, when the Boston shootings happened and people said, Boston's strong. Nobody was like, well, what about our city? He made it very clear. And again, it's kind of like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm usually not someone who responds to like messages and all that, but I've had a couple people challenge me with the Black Lives Matter and all lives matter.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the strategy that I use is so loving. It's not like, well, then you're a racist, and I've literally been like, I get what you're saying and you're absolutely right. All lives do matter. But right now, this is a movement. And it's because of this. Like, for example, I've had cancer. And I will say, cancer sucks. And I would be so pissed off if I've got this, march going on and I'm like, cancer sucks. And someone's like, well, so does diabetes, or all diseases suck. Well, okay, we're here. We're talking about cancer. I experienced it and it's a no-brainer, and I've had so many people like, you know what? I get it. Okay, thanks for putting it in perspective. So I think a lot of times people are defensive and people are like so quick to defend their stance. And it's okay to like educate people and to be, to give people the benefit of the doubt and just say like, you know what, maybe you don't get it. Let me help you understand. It's worth it. There's a lot of people who don't want to understand.
Yeah, you're right. There are people that don't want to change, and there are people that demand change but will look at themselves and say, well, I need to change. And I think these conversations, all it is just chipping away, having conversations with people. And it's very uncomfortable. And a lot of times, people will ridicule, like you said, people will come at you. So I understand why people remain silent. But for me, I said to my wife, I said, what do I have to lose? What do I have to, I know what I have to lose if I stay silent, right? I mean, then I'm just a contradiction or a hypocrite. But if I at least try to just talk about it and try to change one person's heart to say, I understand how you were brought up. I understand. I get it. Wonderful. But now break the cycle. Ask yourself that question. And I said to you too, and it's hard to explain, but it's that hesitation, that moment when you see someone being arrested, when you see someone walking down the street. Do you hesitate? Do you look for justification? Do you look for a reason not to engage because of your belief system? That little slight moment is where we need to get to the root of that. And that moment has to change to where I see a neighbor, I see a brother. I don't see an African-American man and then look for a reason to sort of justify why he's being murdered. He was murdered. That's wrong. We need to come together as Christians, as family, as one nation under God, not diversity.
No, people, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? I challenge anyone to tell me Jesus wouldn't. Look, we're all God's children. And, for anyone who has kids, you love all your children equally. Now, if one of I always tell my kids this, I'm as happy as my least happy child. So if God is looking down at all his children and there's a child who's really unhappy, whether he's got a reason to be or not, one child is unhappy, what's he going to do? He's going to stand with them. He's going to support him. He's going to help him become happy. So that's my theory on it. Like, it's hard for me when Christians don't have the empathy.
Yes.
Because you can sit there and you can throw stats and you can say this and that. And, Black people are killing each other.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you protest that? Or stop. You know what I mean? There's a problem and it's time for us to make a change. And I can't, it's going to be amazing to one day know that we were a part of this, because some huge, I just posted something on my Instagram this morning and it's like 3 pages of everything that's changed since everybody's been protesting. Wow. And it's so ridiculously impressive. For all the people who are like, what's protesting going to do? Well, read, because so many things that never would have changed. And that's just the beginning. And I'm so proud to be able to say I was part of that. I was out there, I would be embarrassed if, 40 years from now, I'm talking to my grandkids, I'm like, I was actually really opposed to that.
No,
I don't know.
Powerful. I mean, because like you said, we can all do something, I think, and we all need to. I don't think we could remain silent. You know, I just don't think that that's.
Not as Christians, at least.
No, I mean, that's what we're called to do, spread the gospel. I mean, it's easy to stay home and come up with excuses. And you know what's interesting? I was waiting for a pastor friend to respond to this question, but the pandemic happened. We're all home. I mean, all in place, right? Be still and know that I am God. And then this happens. And I think if life was normal in a sense, right, whatever that means, I don't think it would have had the same impact. I don't, because people would be traveling, would be at work, would be on vacation. The fact that this happened, and we all say God allows certain things to happen, I think.
God's a genius. God is a genius.
I mean,
wrap our brain around how things work, right?
I'm curious, right? Because we're all looking for the silver lining through the storm, the pandemic, and now I wonder if this is it. I wonder if it's time for change. Israel was enslaved for 400 years, and I guess now this is the time for us to come together and really make a change and not just sweep it under the rug because we're going to the Jersey Shore.
Right. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, cancel 2020, 2020 sucks. And I'm like, you know, 2020 means perfect vision.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have 2020 vision, you could see everything. So, you know, and that's so corny, of course, but it's kind of true. I think a lot of people's eyes are being opened. And I think that 2020 is pretty legendary.
So just a final thought. What could we do, whether I know, say I don't have the ability to protest or I don't have the ability to, go meet you guys in California. What could I do? What can I do as a man, as a woman at home during this pandemic?
You know what? Your the video that you made that I posted on my story, I got so much feedback from that because
I got 12 views on YouTube and they won't, and Facebook and Instagram won't let me promote it. This is not the first time. They will not let me promote the video.
Of course not. Yeah. But I got tons of views and I got tons of feedback on it. Everybody, you could put a black man sitting there, talking about the different experiences he's had and it's one thing, but to hear a white man say, hey, I had to reach deeper than I ever did, and it was an intentional, like I'm being intentional right now and I'm reaching and I'm really trying to understand, and wow, I've kind of learned a lot about myself and I want to see change and I want to be part of the solution, and I'm sorry that you're hurting and I see you and I stand with you. I don't have to understand in the sense of like, oh yeah, it happened to me or I saw it happen. No, you know what? I have enough empathy to know that you faced it and I want to be part of the solution. I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that you're loved. And that's the vibe people got and they loved it. And again, being a white person saying that sometimes speaks louder because, it's like people are looking at you pressing play expecting to hear something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that just keep doing what you're doing and clean your heart. Like I said, we view things by the condition of our heart. So of course, if your heart is a little bit dark or not as healthy as it should be, you may see the negative in everything and you may just be like, oh, they need to just suck it up, pull up their big boy pants and get out there like we all do. And, I was poor and no, it's not about you. It's about a group of people who are just struggling. And I think that it's also, it's all over the world. Like you see the protests in Paris, the protests in Palestine, and it's all for Black Lives Matter. People aren't making it about themselves. And I love that. Like, it's kind of like, you know what? We stand with you. We see you. And it's like the most, and I was going to say, if you do have a chance to get out to a protest, even like a simple one, like a soft protest where people standing on the corner, honking, it's so empowering and it just feels, it's a good feeling. It's such
and I like too. There is one actually in Red Bank, which is going to be as soft as possible, Red Bank, New Jersey. But it's true. It's like, I want my son, I don't want 20 years to go by and for me not to say to my son, oh yeah, I want to change. But I was, I was afraid. So I stayed in my house. Like, what example did it set for my son? I try to monitor everything I do, everything I say. I never want to be a contradiction. But you said two things that I want us to walk away with. One is empathy. There's a huge difference between empathy and sympathy, which you kept saying, and I love it. And also, too, is for us, the one thing we can do is search our heart, understand our intention. Why am I doing this? And also, too, which is kind of funny, if in your algorithms on Facebook, if you're only seeing stats and negative posts, you have a problem. I don't even think you need to pray. I don't think you need to ask yourself a question. I don't get that in my algorithm. My algorithms are Bishop Jakes, Devon Franklin. I only see positive things. I don't see.
That's the thing that's so upsetting is you want to talk to some people and you want to change their heart, but that's not what they're saying. Like, you can go down my feed and there's not one person who's not posting about this in a positive way.
Exactly.
On their feed, people are at the beach and, they'll get a post of a Black person. Usually that's what kills me is I'm getting more people sending me things with like a Black person completely killing the whole movement and talking so badly about George Floyd. And it's like, okay, I get that that's what you're seeing, but just, I plead with people to just take a moment and go outside of that and see what's really happening out there.
You're right. And if somebody feels comfortable enough to send you that post or speak to you about that, then that's something else you need to ask yourself why. Why does someone feel comfortable enough to send me something that goes against my faith and what's actually truly happening? Joumana, this has been fantastic. I always love speaking with you. I hope you and your family are safe and you sort of enjoy this this crazy time and this. But Joumana, anytime you want to speak, I'm always here for you. God bless you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know you can learn a lot from Joumana. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize in words and actions.